So thank you again for having me. And one of the reasons why I am excited to be here today is when Kathy and I were talking about this, we were talking also about finding a way to connect the global north and global south. And so she encouraged me, even though I hate to publicize what I do, but she encouraged me to share it with my social network here in Doha. And I'm originally Egyptian, so also in Egypt, I have some connections in Lebanon, and I'm really hoping that some of them turned up today. Not to see me talk, but I'm hoping that they would be able to identify people that they resonate with in terms of their research. And that brings me to the introductions. Obviously, we won't be able to do all the introductions today, but I do encourage you to add your name, your affiliation, and like maybe 2 or 3 keywords of your research interest. And I encourage people to reach out to, especially those from the global south who are looking for to reach out and branch out to the global north. So I'll leave the chat vibrant. I won't be able to check it, but Kathy, if there are any comments that are directed at me, just give me heads up and I'll address them. I also I know Kathy did the land acknowledgement, and I know that although I'm not currently located in Toronto, I'm currently in Doha, but my heart will always remain in this city, Toronto, the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Nishnabeg, and other nations. It is also the land that has been a site for resistance, survival, and care. And it continues to remind me that the struggle for justice and liberation is not separable all across the globe, from Turtle Island to Palestine to Congo and to Sudan and beyond. And that none of us are free until all of us are free. Some housekeeping points. Try as much as possible. I know it's annoying, but try as much as possible to keep your camera on. I know we all get screen fatigue. Feel free to switch on and off, but yeah, keep it on and try to pretend that we're not in a virtual world. Do those intros. I highly encourage them. We will I tried to design this hour and a half to be as interactive as possible when we have like 80 people in the room, but we'll do our best, but expect some interaction and activities every now and then. We will have at some point a breakout room, so get ready to roll up your sleeves. What else? Oh, one last thing. I'm used to doing a version of this workshop, usually with a partner or two. So it's 2 or 3 of us. I'm going to do it entirely by myself and only in an hour and a half. So this could be a complete disaster, but we'll see. We'll make the best out of it. And Kathy has been really supportive. So I'm really hoping things are going to be smooth. A last disclaimer. The title is called Fundamentals of Community-Based Research. I am going to do the restrictions of time and space and the number of attendees. This is going to be a very quick and dirty introduction. But yeah, if you have any feedback, whether directly to me or to the resource center about specific areas that you would like to expand on, I'm more than happy to come back. Anything for Kathy and for the resource center. Oh, I lied. One last disclaimer. Some core slides that I'm using here today are courtesy of the Center for Community-Based Research. As Kathy mentioned, before I moved to Qatar, I was working as a senior researcher with the Center for Community-Based Research, and they've been really generous supporting me throughout the throughout my career, but also throughout planning and prepping for this workshop. And they've allowed me to use some of their slides and some of their like years and years of work. So at the end, you will also find me referring you to some of their resources if you'd like more advanced and official, I guess, certificates. Okay, let's get going. Before we do so, though, I'd like to just get a general sense of the lay of the land, your familiarity. Like, I'd like to know the audience and how familiar they are with the Center for Community-Based Research. So just take on your phone, either take this QR code, photo of it, or go to slido.com, and enter the hashtag 8520764. I'm going to give people some time to do it. And we're going to use it quite a bit throughout the presentation. So get used to using it. I see already people trickling in. So yeah, in a scale from 1 to 10, just give me a general sense. How familiar are you with the term community-based research? 1 means you've never heard the term before. 10 means yes, you're a pro, you've been using it regularly, or you were part of a research team that used community-based research or a version of it. Okay. I'll give it 10 more seconds. Okay, so I don't know how to describe that. It's not a bell curve. How do we describe that, Kathy? Like it's all over the place. So we have people who have never heard of community-based research, and we have people who are pros, 11% who are okay. Now I'm very insecure because we have a lot of experts in the room. Okay, so it's all over the place. I'll keep that in mind when I am presenting some of the stuff. Again, keep in mind that this is a quick and dirty version. I'm sure, especially as academics, we like to go back and forth and defining things and rethink, oh, what does it overlap with this? Is it this term? Is it that term? I'm just gonna offer a working understanding and a working definition of community-based research just to help us get going. This is just a think of this as a conversation starter for people who'd like to know more about community-based research. It looks like 7 is a winner, so sort of average. Most people are familiar with community-based research. That's good to know. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, this is an ambitious agenda, but let's go with it. Let's have high hopes. We're gonna start with what, why, and when of this community-based research. And then this is the biggest piece, I guess, or the most, the biggest piece of our conversation. We're gonna talk about how to do community-based research, how to design community-based research project. And I'll talk more about this 33411 code. I call it the secret code, or we call it the secret code at CCBR. And then just to try to make it a bit more workshoppy, we're going to have some breakout rooms to work on a particular small area of community-based research or community-based research design. And then we're going to try to implement in practice. I'm going to bring up one example of a current project, community-based project that I'm currently working on. And we're going to conclude with some practice, like in practice, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are some considerations? And in that, obviously, we're going to talk about ethical and logistical considerations. Sounds good? Everyone, I can't see you, so I don't know why I'm asking. Okay. Now, as an academic, I need to start with the theoretical framework somehow. So there are several ways, as you know, that we can start our research journey, and it all starts from a philosophical or a theoretical or like an ontological or epistemological starting point. Same thing, like when we're trying to design research or even community-based research, there are different ways and versions of community-based research. And as we'll discuss later, some people, is it community-based research, community-based participatory research, participatory action research? Here, I'm just using the umbrella term community-based research to encompass all of that. And I'd like to think of it as it's not a take it or leave it approach, but for simplicity, let's just say that there are 2 general ways to do research, and we can think about other ways to do research as a continuum between those 2. So the first one is the expert-based research, where the researcher it's like a top-bottom approach. The researcher is the expert. The individual or the group, the research group, they're all experts who come to assess the situation, come up with hypotheses and or a research question, and based on that, they design the research and conduct the research, collect the data, and so forth. On the other side, on the right-hand side, community-based research, or community-based approach to research, it involves a big aspect of it is that it involves more than one stakeholder, and by more more than one stakeholder, I'm specifically saying non-academic stakeholders working in partnership and collaboratively and co-construct the research journey, including the inception of the research ideas, the needs, and we're going to talk about all of that in details. So, in a sense, community-based research is not just my aim today is to invite you to think about it not just as a methodology, but it's rooted in philosophical and theoretical commitments. And that's why when I was talking to Kathy about it, I think community-based research is very appropriate for the Resource Center for Public Sociology because it is a way to operationalize public sociology and creating impact or bridging research and practice. So yeah, it challenges those traditional power dynamics. It aligns with decolonial um, um, uh, theoretical frameworks. It aims for centering social justice, co-creation of knowledge, and praxis. And obviously that it it centers theoretical pluralism, multiple ways of knowing. It centers also ethics of care, which emphasizes reciprocity, trust, and relational ethics. Okay. And this is one way to define community-based research. This is the Center for Community-Based Research official or formal definition. I'm sure there are other more wholesome definitions, or we can together as a group come up with a better definition. But this is again the working and quick and dirty definition we're going to go with in order to assist us with the next steps. So a community-based approach is an approach that involves active participation of stakeholders. And we're going to talk about the word stakeholders because recently it has been drawing a lot of criticism, and those whose lives are affected by the issues being studied. Kathy, I can't mute myself to cough. I can't find the mute button. Okay, I can't find it. So you're gonna have to hear me cough. Okay. Just like in real life. So it's an active participation of stakeholders, those whose lives are affected by the issue. So the way we understand stakeholders are basically people with lived experience, people whose lives are affected by the issue studied in all phases of the research purpose or the research. And we're going to talk about those stages in later slides. But also it aims to produce useful results to make positive change. And that's the commitment to social justice piece. Again, in anticipation, I'll talk to you about this 33411 number that we often use. Okay, good, because I need to cough again. So again, use the Slido QR code or this just hashtag to tell me a little bit or tell us a little bit based on that definition or that very brief understanding. Why would you adopt a community-based research approach or adopt this way of doing research? Okay, so this is supposed to be not not just one word. You can say, you can use a short phrase or a short sentence to tell us even easier what brought you here, what brings you here. I'll give it 20 more seconds. Okay, great. And I took the chance to to check some of the stuff in the chat, and I see David Phipps there. So hi, David. I just wanted to say hi. It's been a long time. Okay, let's see. Where is it? Okay, so we have capacity building. That cuts the chase. I'm interested as a teacher, as an outsider, to challenge population to educate. I'm attempting to transcend educational norms, to meet kids where they are. I think that's key, meeting people where they are, and to improve outcomes, whether it's kids, whether it's any other stakeholders, to have more nuanced views, to ensure solutions that will actually work. And that's one of the, we're going to talk more about community-based research objectives, that they need to have real impact in the world. Involving the community means the answers we find will be much more accurate and helpful, yes, tailored to the community in need, who are best known for their, and that's again this again goes back to this philosophical assumption, like who knows best? Is it the researcher expert, or is it the community itself? Okay, I really like the the engagement and the activity, desire to help people, for public sociology, that sums it, sort of. Cultural appropriateness, I'd like to know more about that. I can see a link, but you can approach it in different ways. Culture shift, to create culture shift, so change again. Okay, that's fantastic. And we're all in line. I love how many responses this has. Maybe that will help me. I'll have to read them again shortly. And Kathy, when I share with you, I guess the slides, those answers will be there as well. I wonder if they might be of help. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for giving me a general sense of why you're here. So based on that, let me ask you, is community-based research suitable for all kinds of research? And by all kinds of research, maybe let's think outcomes, or not outcomes, objectives, all research objectives. Okay, I guess we can start by saying that community-based research is best for research that aims, like everyone alluded to, centering people with lived experience, or people who are most affected by the issue. It's also suitable for research that aims to enhance relevance to the community. A lot of the responses talked about creating actual impact or solutions that work, and promoting grassroots, culturally responsive. Capacity building is another keyword that was mentioned, but also promoting grassroots answers or solutions that are not detached from people's reality, like, and the complex reality of those stakeholders. Balances power in knowledge production, and for me, this is really important to the nature of work that I do as well. When I keep telling everyone that I'm committed to decolonizing research and decolonizing sociology, it really matters to me the way how community-based research forces you to just every step of the way to be reflexive about how is the balance of power accounted for with this community or those stakeholders that that are involved, that are your partners in this project. However, there are challenges. Implementing some aspects or steps of community-based research can be challenging when there are limited time or resources. A lot of the research funding, even though there has been a slight shift in recent years, the partnership stream in SHIRK, for example, is all geared towards community, sort of community. You can make the case that it's all geared towards community-based research. But yeah, if there's no funding, especially for funding that's geared towards large scale, multi-site, multi-million-dollar research. It might also be challenging when you need the expert involvement to take the front seat in projects where the design is with RTCs, for example, or highly controlled studies. It can also be tokenized. We can say we're decolonizing or we're doing community-based research by just including tokens throughout the way, just to call it community-based research, but it's not a meaningful engagement. And again, when the objectives are not clear, when the reason why we're doing this research is not informed by social justice, by creating change, by bridging research and practice. And there's always tension. We're going to talk about that. There's always tension between the academic demands and the community demands. Even though that said, that community-based research can be challenging to special methods, special research objectives or outcomes, I want to argue, and my argument today is that community-based research is a mindset. And I also, maybe I'm too liberal with my proposition here, but I want to say that for me, it's not take it or leave it, right? You can always try to incorporate elements of community-based research. For me, in my world, this is better than abandoning it for good. So you could go with like a hardcore, full-on community-based research where the community suggested the project to you, for example, and like they are leading the project and you are just facilitating or guiding the research steps. Or you can do it the other way around. You can just pick bits and pieces of how to do community-based research. It can be part of deciding on the research issue or problem. It can be during the data collection, hiring people from the community to do the research for you. So I don't want to burn too many of the cards that I plan to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, again, I think that when you start thinking from a lens of community-based research and community and benefiting the community and giving back to the community, and that you're not necessarily the expert, or you're not trying to design a research project where it's top down, then you will find that the research design is automatically shifting towards community-based principles. Okay, so remember the 33411 code that we were talking about? That is referring to the how of or the what of the community-based, the what of the community-based research. Where the CCBR, the Center for Community-Based Research, talks about 3 hallmarks for community-based research, 3 goals for community-based research, 4 phases, and that's the how of community-based research, and 11 steps. And I'm going to walk you through all of those right now. So for the hallmarks or the principles, community-based research has to be community-driven or stakeholder-driven. And again, I'm using the word stakeholder cautiously with a grain of salt because of like the history. That I'm not an expert in it, but yeah, we're moving more towards using terms like partners or collaborators. It's community-driven, practically relevant to those community members, people who are with the lived experience or whose lives are affected by it or who have to deal with it day to day. So that includes program providers, educators, government. So I'm glad to know that there are some educators in the audience as well. It has to be community-based research. Another hallmark is that it has to be participatory, and that means equitable control of the research gears and the decision making, setting the agenda, having active engagement, which can be challenging, especially when you have people who are on a payroll and already stretched and overwhelmed with their work, and you're asking them to add more to their work. And this participation should yield mutual benefit in whether in the design or in the implementation or in the outcome. It also should be action oriented, and that came a lot from your responses about why community-based research, that it needs to have some sort of an outcome that benefits the community. And the purpose is to create change, and I've seen the word change, enhance social justice, use findings to make changes, whether to policy, practice, programs, and so forth. Okay, so those are the principles. There are also 3 goals for community-based research. And I like to start reading this circle from the orange piece. So traditional research would typically start with learning together or the knowledge production piece, but I like to start with the building relationships piece or the community mobilization piece. You start by building connections with the community, and based on those connections and those relationships, you will start producing appropriate knowledge that is relevant not just to academic gaps, but also to that community. And knowledge mobilization piece, or sharing the knowledge piece, and that's an integral part, and it goes back to creating social action and change. It won't happen before unless there's an active there are active steps in the research design that are aiming to create that are aiming for a research impact. Okay, your turn. I was talking a lot about the term stakeholder, but let's call it partner for now. When we say the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? What do we mean by stakeholders? So there's a little quiz. I'll give you some time to join before I show you the. No, don't add your names. Just don't add your names. Okay. Hi, Chris. Hi, Julie. So just take a screenshot. I guess it is asking you about your names, so that's fine. Feel free to add your names. I haven't tried this feature before, but yeah, once you join in, there's going to be a question and there's going to be a quiz, and the winner, Kathy, will give them $1 million. No, this is recorded. No $1 million. That's a bad joke. But you get a trophy on the screen. Okay, if everyone is ready, and I've kind of hinted at what sort of question I'll be asking. So start thinking about it. Oh, hey, Seba, how are you?
Link to the Slido?
If you just type slido.com.
Okay.
And add the hashtag 8520764.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And for those who are unable to work to add it for some reason, I do try to have some sort of digital equity, but if you are unable to join, there are no real prizes, so you're all winners to me. Okay, so maybe just for the sake of time, we're gonna start. Okay, so what counts as community when we talk about in community-based research? And you should check all that applies. 18 seconds. Okay. People with lived experience. And 100%, everyone clicked on that, and that is correct. Service providers and other influencers, 74%. Policymakers and other sustainers, 67%. Celebrities who support the cause, 26%. Okay, so even though now I'm having second thoughts about celebrities, tradition like celebrities, depending on how if they're also involved in the project as sustainers and influencers and people with lived experience, perhaps. But if they're sharing it, perhaps maybe not. But I welcome any pushback. But yeah, basically, when we talk about the community or stakeholders or partners, we're talking about the people with lived experience, absolutely. But we're also talking about, we refer to them as sustainers and influencers. So sustainers are people who would be able to sustain the research journey or the research project. That includes funders and policymakers. And it also includes the influencers. So even though they're not the people with the actual issue that you're trying to study, they are some sort of gatekeeper. So that includes, yeah, service providers, community leaders, for instance. But I have to say that there's no hard line. I wish I was able to share that other picture, but you will find it in the Center for Community-Based Research Resources, that there's no hard line that separates those three groups. They can wear multiple hats, and actually, in fact, they should wear multiple hats. The way they can be involved, it can be through being participants in the research project. That's the most common way, and that overlaps with traditional research. They can also be team members, so doers, like doing the research. They can be advisors, and steering committees are one of the easiest and most straightforward and most effective ways also to do community-based research. Just having like an advisory committee or a steering committee where you're accountable for. It's like a board for the research project, and they can be quite resourceful and helpful as well. Yeah, again, the steering committee can help with designing, with implementation, and with impact. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I won't be able to read your name. But yeah, thank you so much for participating. Those are the top 5. Great. Okay. So we've talked about the what, the when, and the why. Let's talk briefly. I lied when I said that we're going to spend most of the time on this piece. Actually, it's going to be very difficult because this slide is about to get really crowded right now, and I'm so sorry. It's just the only way I know how to explain it. It will have to be, again, like a very brief crash course, and I hope it doesn't backfire. But basically, but maybe, yeah, when I explain it in high level terms, it won't be as overwhelming. So there are 4 phases for community-based research. All the circles in the middle are those phases. And then the rest in the stuff that will come in the boxes are the 11 steps. And those complement the 3, 3, 4, 11. Let me just fill out the entire thing instead of breaking it down. So I won't go in details with everything, but there are specific things that I would like you to note in this diagram. First, there are those 4 phases. You will notice that number 1 starts with laying the foundation. Traditional research often focuses on number 2 and number 3. So research planning and or like that's the research design, and then information gathering or data collection and analysis. Community-based research, and I know that groups that such as Research Impact Canada, for example, I know, David, you're here, you can speak better about it, and Knowledge Mobilization Unit at York University are really trying to push for including number 4 to become an integral part of the research process. But I'm speaking now about community-based research and what community-based research values. That we'd like to think of community-based research that it adds 2 more steps. One step before the traditional research steps or phases, and one phase after the traditional research phases. Those are laying the foundation at the beginning before you start designing the research, and then finally after you're done. It is not community-based research if you're not acting on the findings and finding proactive and effective ways to in fact translate that into benefit and impact to the community. This is what the first thing that I want you to notice. The other thing is in the steps, those 11 steps, you will notice that there are relational steps or relational aspects and technical aspects. And that's another distinction that distinguishes traditional community-based research from traditional based research. And I know that I'm, yeah, just it's much more complicated than that. But yeah, just for the sake of clarifying, with traditional research, at least even in the research methods classes that I teach, we often focus on the technical aspects. So finding let's start with number two, determining the research questions, developing methods, what are the appropriate methods, what is the analysis plan, and so forth. In community-based research, we emphasize the relational aspect because it's all about building trust and building connections with the community. It's all about empowering that community in order to be a collaborator or a partner in the research design. So it's always emphasized, and it always comes at the top before considering the technical aspects. You will also notice that it's circular, and that, yeah, community-based research brings more insights that should inform further research and so forth. And you will notice another arrow that brings back the information from 3 to 2, or step number 3, or the data collection to research planning. Another way we'd like to think about community-based research is that it's more open and more flexible. And so that makes it slower and consumes more resources, that it's much more open to making changes and tweaks to the design based on the insights and the information that we've received from the community. Okay, let me see if I missed anything. I think that's it, but let me just spend a little bit more time on this first step, first phase, the laying the foundation phase, because it's not very common and not practiced in traditional research, and that's why I just want to talk a little bit about it. So yeah, the relational aspect, the relationship building aspect, where you build a relationship with the community, access the community, which can be really challenging and in itself can take a long time, depending on the community and whether your position as an insider or an outsider to that community. The technical aspects of it is finding those stakeholders, creating a steering committee, which is, again, one of the most effective ways to do community-based research, and being accountable to that steering committee, identifying the assumptions about the research. Why are we doing this research? What is the relationship between the different partners, who's doing what, and so forth? What are our positionalities? I also want to talk a little bit about identifying the purpose statement, because we will spend some time trying to develop one in the workshop if we have time. Okay, so yeah, one last bit is that the first 3 stages, the first 3 phases, the laying the foundation, research planning, and information gathering, is considered the doing the research part, while the acting on the findings is the using the research part. Okay, this is a lot of information dump, I understand, and I hope that this random picture of a rooster, is it a rooster, is just confusing enough so that you gives you a shock to ask yourself, are you really doing okay? Or maybe I can pause here and see if in the chat there are any questions, elaborations, people who have any insights or comments or additions. I'll give everyone a second to gather their thoughts. Okay, Kathy, if you think, oh, turkey, it's a turkey. Thank you so much, David. The bird, not the country, yes. The steering committee, yes, I see a question. Could you go back to the steering committee? Who would be part of that question? Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable question. So that would be, let me see how I can go back to, can I go back? That would be the part of, no, who is the community? And anyone who's part of that community, I can't go back anyways. So and our discussion of the community, like people with lived experience, sustainers, facilitators, so policy makers, funders, service providers, gatekeepers, people with lived experiences themselves, all of those folks could be members of the steering committee. And it is very difficult to say that there's a particular equation and who should be included in your steering committee, but you would want some sort of diversity, not just in terms of demographic diversity, which is important, but also in terms of expertise. You know, you would like when you're thinking of a board, you would want people with community reach, for example. You would want people with academic skills, even. You would want people with lived experience. So you would want to complement, depending on the objective of your study, or what you're, why you're doing this research. You would want to think carefully about who you would like to invite. And there are also realistic aspects about the steering committee, including the time limitation. A lot of the people who would be great for steering committees are just basically incredibly busy and won't be able to be part of it. What about the research? Okay, seems like an interesting point. The definition of community appears broad to allow many people to join. What about the research deciding the community? Could you elaborate a little bit about the second half? Thank you, David. Yes, and please, I'm 100% sure David is the one who pressed 10 at the very beginning and freaked me out. So feel free to add anything to support. How would you compensate people for the time? Yes, you definitely, so the way we do it, I'm sure there are versions and approaches where you don't get paid for it, but oh, you pressed 8. Okay. But the way we would do it at the Center for Community-Based Research, and how I'd like to continue to do my research, is that I benefit from this. I am paid somehow to do this. They aren't. So we do have some sort of honorariums. And you get to decide what is appropriate. It can be as part of a negotiation with them. You can, yeah, there are different ways to do it, but definitely we want to be mindful. They do benefit in terms of, yeah, they can say we're part of a steering committee, just like you would benefit from being a board member, but still you would want to compensate their time and insights. Okay, so I think there are more questions, but again, in the interest of time, let's just keep going. I think the turkey did its job. I'm glad. Okay, let's zoom in particularly on that phase 1, where we talked about the purpose statement, because it is a crucial step. And I think it's also nice, given the time that we've got, to work a little bit on it and like just throw the ball back at you and get you to roll up your sleeves and work a little bit on some aspects of designing community-based research. So the purpose statement, one important thing to know about the purpose statement is that even though it overlaps with the research question, it's not a research question. It's much more comprehensive. So yeah, it clearly outlines the intent of the research, but it also emphasizes the collaboration with the community and the shared goal. Like, so this is one big difference, is that it emphasizes this shared goal and social change. And this commitment, like it reflects those goals and hallmarks that we talked about at the beginning. Unlike traditional academic research, community-based research purpose statement centers the experiences and the needs of this community, or those stakeholders, or those collaborators or partners in the research. Again, there's this focus on not just doing research, but using research. So it emphasizes how the outcomes, and again, don't quiz me on the difference between outcomes and outputs and objectives and all that stuff, but that there is a tangible effect and change in the community, for leading to social change and mutual benefit. What makes a strong purpose statement? Again, going back to those hallmarks and objectives, it needs to be grounded in community concerns. Ideally, it needs to start from the community. If not, then you would need to do some real investment in identifying those needs. And that requires a lot of time, building trust and humility. It needs to identify those mutual goals or those overlaps between the researcher as an academic, I guess in most cases, and this community. And that could take time, a lot of time, and a lot of negotiation, and a lot of reflection, norming and storming, until we find it. And then we need to identify those actions. How are we going to work on the findings in order to have this benefit, benefiting back, or like giving benefit back to the community. And finally, and this is throughout, there has to be some sort of mutual respect and trust again, and this sort of accountability. And in that case, accountability would be to the community represented in that steering committee in most of the cases. Okay. This is not the best way to do it, but it is one way to do it, about developing a purpose statement. And I encourage you, after I finish this slide, to take a screenshot or like a picture, because the next activity, we will be going in breakout rooms and we will use this, this equation sort of. So a purpose statement, one easy way, and I always appreciate an easy and obvious start. So we start by saying, the purpose of this collaboration or this partnership is to, and then you add a verb. This verb can be to explore. So the same way you're designing a research question, to explore, co-create, envision, assess, document, etc. And then you add the scope, the target, the audience. And you need to emphasize in that case, and that what makes it different than just a research question, on the collaboration and how you start. You want to you have two eyes thinking about the academic outputs or the academic benefits and the community benefits. And then based on what you're planning on doing and the purpose of this collaboration and how, and the purpose and the process of the collaboration, you add in order to, and then, okay, give me a second. You explain the action or the use or the impact of this collaboration. Now that sounds a little bit abstract even to me when I'm reading it out loud. So this is one example. And then when you work on your own examples, I do have a couple more examples that might help clarify things a little bit. So this is one real example that we worked on at the Center for Community-Based Research, using Waterloo as a case study. The purpose of this evaluation is to collaboratively explore the disruptive impact of the recent Syrian refugee influx on the way local communities support newcomers. So the verb here, let me find it, is to evaluate. So this is a community-based evaluation, not research per se. To collaboratively, and collaboratively here is also key, and it shows how it's not, it emphasizes this collaborative and partnership aspect, to explore the disruptive impact of research of the recent Syrian refugee influx, and that's based on the community needs. So the local community itself flagged that there was an issue, that there was a disruption, that there was an inability to cope and adapt to this major influx that happened all of a sudden. And then in order to, I know the word in order to was not explicitly mentioned here, but this was done in order to determine how local communities innovate to better support refugees, and to determine how public policy can reinforce these innovations. And you can notice here that there is, that using research was also incorporated in the process, whether it's giving back to the local community some best practices, or informing public policy. Okay, so try to take a screenshot. Oh, was I too quick? Okay. So Kathy, now is the time where we can try, and you will notice here that I'm asking you, working in groups, decide on a topic or an idea. It could be hypothetical or a real one. So one of the group members, I think we're aiming for 4 to 6 members per room, breakout room. Someone has to just step up or volunteer and say, this is something that I'm working on, or someone should suggest a process. Just don't get hung up too much on the on what kind of topic it is. You can always twist it to make it a community-based, have a community-based angle or lens to it. And then you will notice that I say yeah, Kathy?
Yes, I'm setting up rooms, but I've tried to create it so that people can choose what substantive topic, like whether it's Indigenous people or children and families, set a bunch of topics and assign some people to rooms based on comments that they've put, but anybody else could just choose a room based, if you're not put into a room automatically, just choose one. Okay.
So yeah, if this is, I'm just worried that that's gonna end up having some like 17 people in one room and two in another.
I am too, however, because you and I met in a breakout room at the beginning, I'm not able to figure out how to totally erase that structure of
Okay.
rooms. So if you're in a room
Then
with
we'll
a
work
lot
with,
of people, just switch to something else.
okay,
So
then
I'm
we'll
just,
work with what we've got.
okay,
Community-based research is messy. But you will notice that I say start a purpose statement. Don't aim to finish it. If you finish it, that's great, but just start. It's about the conversation. And I think Kathy, 10 minutes. So we should be back by 9:40 my time, which is
all
what,
right, 10
2:40 your
minutes.
time?
I'll keep an eye on 10 minutes because we're all in different time zones. Okay, opening up some rooms now. So some of you should have the option before you to choose a room. Others, if you'd like to tell me some topic that you're interested in, or if you'd just like to choose any room randomly, please do. Okay, I saw Omar's message.
I was hoping to speak more about this case study, but I prefer that we end up with a longer discussion or Q&A. But one of the projects that I'm working on right now is with Nissa Homes, which is like the first and one of very few, if not two, shelters tailored for Muslim women who are basically not just fleeing domestic violence or gender-based violence, but also who are also homeless and new immigrants. So they're dealing with intersectional layers of barriers and oppressions. And so they're promoting a culturally responsive model. And the way the collaboration started is actually by me volunteering with them. And it just came up in the conversations like, oh, it would be cool. I'm a researcher. It would be cool to do something about this that's like more geared more towards research. And people just picked it up and they got so excited and they said, oh, we wanted to do something like this, we just did not have the resources or the person who's able to like frame it for us. And that's how it started. And I'm proud to say that it started the ideal way community-based research should start. And the way they were involved in, it's a partnership engaged grant. So they are involved as collaborators on the grant. They have helped us shape the research statement with the research question and the purpose statement, and I'll speak more about the purpose statement. We don't have a specific steering committee because of the size of the organization and the high turnover of the staff, but we do have a core team, and by core our steering committee is basically a WhatsApp group. And it's very active, it's very accessible. We always like troubleshoot and brainstorm ideas. If we need to discuss something, we have to book a meeting, but it's very interactive, and it makes them even more involved. That it's not very tolling time-wise and resource-wise for them. They supported us throughout the data collection, offering access, recruitment, and even training on trauma-informed research, giving us a sense of what the needs of their clients are, and so forth. This is a quick picture of what the home looks like, just to bring it to life a little bit to you. So it's an actual home. The common interest or the question that connects the academic and the non-academic aspects of this research is, are all women equal? Or specifically, are all homeless women equal? And that's when we started talking about Muslim homeless women's experiences, intersectionality, gendered Islamophobia. And if so, and that's the action piece, what can we do differently and what can we do about it? And based on that, the purpose statement was, it took its time to develop, just because there's also this layer of trust. We know each other, we volunteer, we are friends, and which can be sometimes problematic. But the purpose of this collaboration is to understand how culturally and religiously responsive shelter models address the intersecting challenges of gender-based violence, but also migration, precarity, and housing intersectionality, which makes it a very complex issue, in order to co-develop. And you can see the spirit of the collaboration is throughout the statement: co-develop recommendations that inform national strategies for scaling holistic, culturally informed support systems that empower racialized women and their families. I wish I could speak more about this. But yeah, just to conclude, the quick answer is lots can go wrong with community-based research in practice, but we should embrace this messiness. Let me just find that mouse. Okay. It can be very messy. People don't necessarily agree. They norm and storm all the time. They have different interests, like we discussed. Logistically, it's tolling, emotionally, time-wise, resource-wise, especially when you're dealing with a community who's not properly compensated, and who are often, when you're working with service providers, or people with lived experience of particular groups, they're often over-researched and under-resourced, so they're overstretched. That can create a lot of tensions, like I've discussed, for example, that there's a high turnover with NISA homes, so that could be also a challenge. Reflexivity and balance of power. I guess any critical research needs to incorporate this. But yeah, we have to consider it as well throughout the different 4 phases, including when you're laying the foundation and when you're building your steering committee. Who are you choosing based on what is there balance of power amongst even the steering committee? Yes, competing interests. Academics, they are programmed to think publications, which can be very limiting, especially with, like you have to embrace long-term, midterm, and short-term goals with community-based research, which is not always feasible, especially with junior scholars who are waiting for tenure. And I'm not gonna turn this into a therapy session for myself, but there are often tensions and competing interests between academic goals and tenures and promotion and community benefits. There are definitely ethical considerations, and I wish I could speak more about that. We can have a whole entire session on that. What does it mean to have a continuous consent, especially when, for example, we're recruiting clients through the service providers? They might fear that they might lose services, etc. Compensating time, like we mentioned, especially with the service providers. Who owns the data after it's done? Is it the researcher through publishing? Is it someone else? Is it the community who gets credit, and so forth? And we talked about short-term and long-term impact. Those are just 2 examples, because the research, because also my background is in knowledge mobilization. It is always the missing, the underemphasized piece. So we always like to emphasize it in community-based research. And just to conclude, which with enough time to discuss, and I'm happy to stay a little bit more if people have further questions. Now, I've dumped a lot of information, and I know this is a lot to take in less than 90 minutes. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Center for Community-Based Research have allowed me, thankfully, to use some of their slides, and this is their bread and butter, actually, the kind of research. They are like a consulting group, basically, but they do have some other resources on their website. I've included their website over here. They do have some free resources, including those like 3, 3, 4, 11 slides, so you can have those if you go right now. They also do offer some more advanced and detailed certificates. I think for like you have to sign up and pay for it and register and all that stuff. But I would highly recommend, if people would like to take next steps to be certified or to go more in depth, to look them up. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much. And I think we have enough time for any questions, discussions. Hopefully not too much pushback, because it's 10 p.m. But I'm okay. I can take it.